The reason they like reading my stuff is that I've always got real life examples to prove what I'm saying.
There's a lot of good people that listen to this podcast.
Other than God and my family, deer hunting would be next in line on my list of priorities.
From the bottom of our hearts, it's just fantastic and awesome to have the support that you guys are getting.
People ask me about expandable broadheads and love swings.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome to the Chasing Giants podcast with Don Higgins. I'm Terry Peer. We're brought to you by Osseo Gear. Don, it's the 1st of June. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but the talk of the most of the Midwest is the drought. And we talked a little bit about our fears of EHD last week, and we don't necessarily have to go into that again. But let's talk a little bit how it affects our nutrition program, our food plots, because we're just getting message after message of people freaking out about not having any water on their plots.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many questions a day I answer from people about, I planted my miscanthus 3 weeks ago and we haven't had a rain, or I planted my soybeans, 2 weeks ago, we haven't had rain, and on and on and on. So it's very widespread, and it's, the worst drought of my life that I remember is 2012, and we're setting up to have one about as bad. I mean, I think the 2012 drought started maybe a little bit earlier, but the good thing that happened in 2012 was that in September, there was a hurricane, early September, there was a hurricane that pushed a bunch of rain up our way. I remember it very well because I was in Alaska moose hunting when it happened, and we hadn't mowed our yard in probably 2 months. And then while I was gone to Alaska for 16 days, my wife mowed 3 times. Of course, she mows every time it grows a quarter inch, but I came back and my soybean plants looked like they had absolutely doubled in size in the 16 days I was gone. But I was out today inspecting my plots. In fact, I posted 4 different videos on the Whitetail Master Academy at different places that I stopped on my tour and made short videos. And the thing of it is, the plants are there. I mean, the plants are there. Most of them are out of the ground. Some of them, but they're not doing much. I know they're growing roots. And the thing of it is, they ought to have a fantastic root system right now. If we just start getting some rain, those plants would literally double in size in a week.
Right.
And but if we don't get rain, we're going to be looking at trying to salvage something in the fall, or late summer, fall planted plots. But what we're going to be missing is those grain crops, the soybeans and the corn. So basically all we can do is pray for rain at this point, and then we get into August, we'll start coming up with plan B if we have to, but
well, the anxiety and the fear that everybody has, they think they have to have this figured out right now. And I guess I just keep telling everybody there's nothing decided yet. We can wait and decide if we need a plan B as July and August approach. There's nothing you're going to change or do about it out of right now. I think back to 2000, what year did we shoot the old guy in Smoky?
17.
So 17 was a real bad spring drought also, because the food plot that Smoky and the old guy came out in was all deadly dozen because you lost your spring plot that year. And if people go back and watch the Smoky video, I think you actually touched on that a little bit, because we lost most of our grain that spring, and you went back and planted deadly dozen in about every food plot you had.
Right. And, I've said it many times, the best thing about a spring food plot, you get a second chance if it fails. And this might be one of those years when there's a lot of failures and we have to go with plan B, and that's the fall planted plots. One thing I will say is that as long as I've been planting food plots, which is 25 plus years now, I have never had a bad spring and a bad fall in the same year. I hope it never happened this year. I hope it never happens. But usually if I had a bad spring, well, always if I had a bad spring, there was always plenty of moisture that fall to make up for it. And I hope that trend continues.
Well, like I said, the only thing that I think people need to really consider right now is if they have not planted their food plot right now and the ground is really dry, there's no moisture in the ground, you might want to rethink investing a lot of money into seed right now if there's no rain in the extended forecast. So, there's a lot of years based on the forecast that you can plant clover in early May or June or late May and June if there's rain in the forecast. But right now, I mean, I wouldn't even try that. I would just hold on to it till fall.
I agree 100%. And, one of the things that is one of the common mistakes I see with food plotters, and I've talked about it before, is that those spring plots, they want to plant them late. They want to wait until Memorial weekend or into June, and they want to get out there and plant. I just had a guy call me yesterday about planting soybeans. He hasn't even got his plot ready yet, and he's thinking about planting some soybeans. Well, the guys that drag their feet, this is one year, they're really going to pay for it, because your odds of getting a good spring planted plot now are very, very low.
Well, for the people watching YouTube right now, I'm going to share a screen for Don to look at. He hasn't seen this website, but this is the U.S. Drought Monitor website, and it actually plots out the continental U.S., and it has a heat map that we can look at. And if you look down here where my mouse is, Don, you can see where you have no drought, abnormally dry, moderate drought, all the way up to extreme and exceptional. And walk us through a little bit of this, because this is a lot of deer country highlighted in drought on this. And oddly enough, the Southeast, there's very little of it. It looks like the Southeast is getting rain. So walk us through some of these states that we know that are big deer hunting areas. Obviously, the people listening on the podcast platforms can't see this, but a lot of big deer hunting states affected this year here.
Yeah, I mean, it starts out in Kansas in the Plain States, Kansas, Nebraska, and then it comes right over through, Iowa, Missouri, up into Minnesota is really dry. Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan is dry. Ohio, and then it goes clear to the East Coast. You got Pennsylvania out there that's really dry. New York is dry. I'm not surprised about the Southeast, though, because I don't know if you've seen the pictures of the corn that I posted from South Carolina, grown by Ron Fagan down there. It looks absolutely fantastic. And then he sent me a text this morning and said they got another 1/4 inch of rain either this morning or last night. But his corn looks absolutely fantastic. And of course, looking at this map, his area looks good. So not surprising.
The ironic thing I see about this is, you look at the state of Kansas right now, and probably 80% of the state of Kansas is in red or dark red, which is the twoest extreme sides of it. But you look up like around Atchison County, up in that northeast corner, and it's white there. So that's a testament that just a couple hours away, you could have completely different variation in what you're seeing. I look at the state of Illinois on here, and southern Illinois is in what's called abnormally dry, but up around your area in central Illinois, it's 2 steps shaded darker than that. But yeah, I don't remember seeing Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Michigan, Wisconsin, everybody being this dry across there. It's actually pretty scary for everybody, and I understand why they're a little worried about it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how current this map is, because I know one of my consulting clients out in Kansas, Doug Kuzik, in the last 12 days he's got 4 inches of rain, and he was in a severe drought.
This map was data valid on June 6th, and it was released today.
So it's current, but it might not reflect. I mean, getting 4 inches of rain in 12 days might not pull that area out of a drought. I mean, if it hadn't rained there in 2 years hardly, and they've been in it for 2 years,
and you have to realize
take a lot more than that.
And you have to realize too, one thunderstorm system or cell that goes through, it's not maybe gonna. This is a heat map showing the whole entire, so county by county. It's not that detailed, but yeah, I mean, it's just that anxiety I think that us deer hunters have. We invest a lot of time and money, and especially products like miscanthus, where we go all in. And I planted over 600 yards of miscanthus this year, but unfortunately, there's just not a lot we can do.
No, I checked my miscanthus planting today. I planted it 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I probably got 5%, above the ground, growing out of the ground. I'm guessing there's a whole lot more that's just below the surface. I think the ground is almost kind of crusted over. If we get a good soaking rain that would soften up that top layer of soil, I think there'd be a whole lot more miscanthus pop up. But right now, I'm looking at about 5% success on a substantial miscanthus planting. So you guys that are in the same boat, I feel for you, because I'm right there with you.
So Don, you talked about a couple weeks ago, somebody asked a question about watering trees too often, or how often to water trees. And you made a comment about you want that tree root ball to go out and get established, and watering too often might not encourage that. You mentioned earlier about your corn and your beans. They're up and they're probably growing. Walk us through a little bit about what that plant's trying to do. I assume that root system is rapidly using as much energy as it can to look for moisture deep versus I guess what would be the right term, it growing above ground to reproduce is what normally it would be doing with moisture.
Yeah, and interesting enough, I just read a study on corn. This was an ag study. It wasn't a food plot study, and it basically said that the best corn yields are had when there's a dry spring, because the dry spring, that corn plant puts on a much better root system. If it's a wet spring, that plant's got all the moisture it needs. It doesn't have to have a real substantial root system. And the thing of it is, we're set up perfect if it would just stop raining. We've got enough dry weather that our plants have put on the root now. They've got a really good root system. If we could just get the moisture to them now, I think they would explode. I literally think the plants would double in size in 7 days.
Yeah. As far as the people, you touched on it just a little bit, but go in just a little bit more and talk about the people that are freaking out right now and trying to ask us what they need to do about Plan B. I guess the first question is, where's our divide line normally with fall plots versus spring? We need to go into this here anyway in the next couple months. And if you're sitting on this decision, when are you actually evaluating whether to let the current crop go or till it under, burn it off, and replant?
Well, to be honest, I'm not even going to make that decision until a week or two before I do it. And I'm not going to do it until the normal planting time, which for me is going to be right there around September 1st, give or take 3 or 4 days either side of September 1st. That's going to obviously change with where different listeners are located, but I'm going to push it, as long as I can, because of what I seen in 2012 when I went to Alaska at the 1st of September in 2012. My soybean plants were terrible looking. They weren't even knee high. I mean, the best plants might have been knee high, and there was just a lot of, you could look through that plot and see a lot of soil. They weren't really full plants. And I came back 16 days later, and those plants were over my waist, and they were absolutely full. And I had a great soybean crop that year. Soybeans can handle the drought better than the corn, actually, and they'll just sit there and wait for the rain. Now that corn, it's got a window that it's going to grow in, and if it comes time for pollination, and that corn plant is stressed out and it's not got the moisture it needs, that's when it's really going to affect the harvest or the yield. And the worse it is, the worse the yield's going to be.
All right. One last thing about the weather as it relates to some of the other questions we keep getting on the real world side. and that is our NutriCrave corn crop. And everybody wants all these details about, exactly when it's available, the exact cost of it. But what we're dealing with Mother Nature right now is going to affect and drive a lot of the agriculture corn market and the yields that we don't know what we have yet before we can bring to market.
Mhm.
I guess that's one of the things that our strength is one of our biggest weaknesses, because we use the freshest products possible that are grown that year, whether it's seed or in this case, shell corn. We're not carrying this stuff over year after year after year. So in this case, where we're growing so much of it this summer, it's going to affect a lot of what we're able to bring to market come the end of September.
Mhm. Yeah, one thing I can say, well, a couple things in regard to the NutriCrave deer corn that we're going to harvest this fall. The local grower who has over 200 acres of it growing for us, about 220 acres, I know he's got some rains that I didn't get. So that field is
Yep.
probably not in as bad a shape as what I am at home. And I'm only maybe 15 miles away from him. The other thing is we've got some not near that much. We've got some acreage being grown in northern Indiana, and I know of some acreage in Iowa that we might be able to buy the corn out of that field as well.
Right.
So we're going to be looking at all options, but if we could get a rain, I mean, this could all turn around, and next time
Sure.
we record the podcast, we could be looking at, things looking fantastic.
Yeah. And it's not to make everybody panic. It's just to explain the real situation, that no matter what we do and how we prepare, Mother Nature is still going to drive this thing.
Right.
Welcome
Yeah,
to the
there's
life of
not
a
a
farmer, right? All the farmers are sitting back grinning at us right now because this is their livelihood every year.
hmm And we get these questions every day about water and should I be watering my miscanthus? Well, if you can, yeah, you should be watering if you can. But the thing of it is, a lot of the guys don't have they've got major plantings. They didn't just plant 100 rhizomes. They might have planted 1,000 or 10,000 or 20,000. And if you want to water them, I guess you can, but you're going to be looking at a pretty labor intensive summer if you're going to do that. It's going to be never ending.
A lot of buckets of water.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break and listen to our feature sponsor, Osseo Gear. And then I'm going to come back and do something for the first time we've ever done on this podcast. I'm going to let Don watch a video as everybody's watching his reaction, and then we're going to talk about it. He doesn't even know what he's watching yet. So make sure you stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Osseo Gear introduces a premium line of bow hunting gear that is unmatched, pairing nature's finest camouflage with the best technological innovations. Osseo Gear brings whitetail bow hunters the gear they need to be the best at their craft. The unique camouflage mimics the intricate feather pattern of North America's greatest predatorial creatures. Designed for invisibility, built for comfort, and engineered for function. Visit OsseoGear.com. That's ASIO Gear.com to start shopping. Osseo Gear. Prepare to be invisible.
All right, Don, we practiced this to make sure that you could open up this link. And the link is going to be, for those who aren't listening or are watching on YouTube, I'm going to try to splice this in, and at least everybody will get to hear the audio. But the people watching on YouTube are going to be able to see Don's reaction. This is actually a press conference from the Oklahoma fast pitch softball team that's getting just a ton of publicity. And I want you to watch this.
Ready?
Yep.
I will click on the link.
Back row left. Alex Garber with ESPN. For the players, I know you talked about keeping the joy of the game, but I'm curious, it's a long season, right? And you guys have had the target on your back the entire time, the win streak being number one. How do you handle the unique pressure that comes with that? How do you keep the joy for so long when anxiety seems like a thing that could very easily set in?
Well, the only way that you can have a joy that doesn't fade away is from the Lord. And any other type of joy is actually happiness that comes from circumstances and outcomes. I think Coach has said this before, but joy from the Lord is really the only thing that can keep you motivated, just in a good mindset, no matter the outcomes. Thankfully, we've had a lot of success this year, but if it was the other way around, joy from the Lord is the only thing that can keep you embracing those memories, moments, friendships, and all of that. So that's really the only answer to that, because there's no other way that softball can bring you that, because of how much failure comes in it and just how much of a roller coaster the game can be.
1000% agree with Grace Lyons. I went through that my freshman year. I was so happy to win the college. I've talked about this before, but I was just so happy that we won the College World Series, but I didn't feel joy. I didn't know what to do the next day. I didn't know what to do for that following week. I didn't feel filled, and I had to find Christ in that. And I think that is what makes our team so strong, is that we're not afraid to lose, because if it's not the end of the world if we do lose. Yes, obviously we've worked our butts off to be here and we want to win, but it's not the end of the world because our life is in Christ, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think a huge thing that we've really just latched onto is eyes up. And you guys see us doing this and pointing up, but we're really like fixing our eyes on Christ. And that's something where, like they were saying, you can't find a fulfillment in an outcome, whether it's good or bad. And I think that's why we're so steady in what we do, and our love for each other and our love for the game, because we know this game is giving us the opportunity to glorify God. Mm-hmm. And I just think once we figured that out and that was our purpose and everyone was all in with that, it's really changed so much for us. And I mean, I know myself, I've seen so much of a growth in myself with once I turned to Jesus and I realized how he had changed my outlook on life, not just softball, but understanding how much I have to live for, and that's living to exemplify the kingdom. And I think that brings so much freedom. And I'm sure everyone's story is similar, but we all have those great testimonies that have really like shown how awesome it is to play for something bigger. And I think that's just what brings me so much joy. And no matter the outcome, whether we get a trophy in the end or not, this isn't our home. And I think that's what's amazing about it, is we have so much more. We have an eternity of joy with our Father, and I'm so excited about that. And yes, I live in the moment, but I know this isn't my home. And no matter what, my sisters in Christ will be there with me in the end, when we're with our King. So,
Patty.
I got the exact reaction I knew you would, and for those people who are watching Don, that's pretty much his reaction about everything. But Don, I sat there and watched those girls, and my first takeaway is hats off to their coach, their parents, and every other mentor in their life, that young people have that perspective. But I want to spin this to what you deal with in your hunting career as a guy who's been on the pinnacle of what most people dream is success. These kids are at the College World Series. They're probably, by the time everybody watches this video, have won the College World Series, the pinnacle of fast pitch softball. And they flat out said that you can't have joy in the sport. How does that even equate to shooting a buck like Mel, shooting a buck like Smokey, and your journey in hunting? I just think it's an awesome parallel.
Well, there's no doubt about that. First thing I thought when the second girl started talking was, I'm thinking, these girls got a great coach. And they're not even talking about themselves or the game. And the parallels with deer hunting and chasing big deer and trying to be somebody in the hunting industry, it doesn't matter who you are in the hunting industry, you're never gonna be fulfilled. You can kill the world record buck, you can have the top rated outdoor hunting TV show, you can be on the cover of every magazine, you can go to trade shows and have people lined up clear around the building to get your autograph and take a picture with you, and it's never going to be enough. It's never going to fulfill you. And that I figured that out a few years ago, that no matter what I do in the deer woods, it's never going to be enough. I'm never going to be content with whatever I accomplish in the deer woods. It's just not going to happen. That only comes through Christ. And I've shared many times on this podcast the saying that believing is seeing. We've heard the saying, seeing is believing, but turn that around, believing is seeing. And it is just, you can't even really explain it to someone who isn't a Christian, but the more you believe, the more God will reveal himself to you. And I feel sorry for people that don't get it. And I try to open people's eyes. And I'll tell you, in recent days, I've come under attack a couple times on social media this week, and I literally could walk away from that stinking social media and never look back. I do it for basically the business and for trying to reach lost deer hunters, and to get accused of things that are not true. I know where that's coming from. I know it's coming from Satan, because he doesn't want us to, to reach those lost deer hunters. But those girls said it so well. It's the same way with deer hunting. It wouldn't matter what you was doing. You could be driving race cars, you could be fishing, you could be playing checkers, or you could be the world chess champion. It doesn't matter. You could be the world champion at anything out there. It doesn't matter what it is, and you're not going to be fulfilled. I'm telling you, you're not. If I killed a 200-inch buck every year on public land, wearing Separtech underwear and a bow that I whittled out of a stick, it's never going to matter. It's never going to be fulfilling enough. It's just not. What matter? That male, the buck male hanging right here on my wall, I'm looking right at him. It doesn't. That is so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. If the day they lay me in a casket and my family's there at my funeral, and people are coming through commenting to my family, if the only thing these people are saying is, "Oh, Don was a great deer hunter," "Man, I love Don's articles," or "Don's hunting books were the best," if that's the only thing I ever accomplished, then I've wasted my life. I've flat out wasted my life. And it's about people. And I've said many times also that the best thing that deer hunting has ever done for me is the people that it's brought into my life. And not just Christian people, but people that became Christians. That's the big thing. It's funny when I come under attack on social media or wherever, that's where it usually happens. But it seems like when that happens and I get down, something comes along to pick me up. And I got an email just yesterday from this young man, and he listens to the podcast, a fan of the podcast, and he said he's a Christian. He wanted to know how he could pray for you and I. And he says, "I don't want anything. I don't want advice on anything. I just want to know what specifically can I pray for you and Terry?" And I said, I replied back, I said, "Just pray that we can withstand the attacks of the enemy, because they come at us sometimes a lot harder than our support is there." So he fired back an email reply, and he says, "Done." He's praying for us that we'll be able to withstand these attacks. And right before I got on to record this podcast, I was on my phone looking at my Facebook, and some local guy was bashing me because I'd made a post about I was out to drive and looking for bucks. I posted a picture of my my video camera, and the sun was setting behind that over a soybean field. And I said something like, "Who else is ready to go look for velvet bucks?" And this local clown pretty much insulted me, basically was saying that I drive around finding big bucks and then I sneak in, insinuating without permission and kill them. And when we started recording, I was kind of fired up at this guy, because I know the guy. I mean, he lives right here in my community, and never have I had anything bad to say about him, anything negative whatsoever. Any encounter him and I have had has been friendly. And then he goes and posts something like that on my social media. But then what happens? A few minutes later, you throw that video up, and cheers me right up. But those girls have it figured out. They got it figured out, and it's so amazing that they figured it out so young, because I'm telling you, when I was their age, I didn't have it figured out. I was chasing the next big buck, and I wanted to write magazine articles every month. I wanted to be in every magazine. I wanted to have books published. I wanted to do the seminars. I wanted to kill giants. And you know what? I've done all that, and it's not enough. You're never going to be fulfilled with anything you're chasing on this earth.
Well, I sit back and look at a side of you that not many people get to see. And, if you panned your camera up right now, right over top of your head is 2 screenshots of North American whitetail with you holding bucks on it. You've made the cover now twice. Who knows how many articles, giant bucks on the wall. And I just want to say that I think part of the extreme success and notoriety and business success that you've had is when you changed that focus from being about the animal to about making a difference in people's lives. And, this isn't necessarily a time of the year where we get to talk about a lot of hunting strategies and everybody listens every week for the next big tip on how to kill a big buck. That's what this podcast is about. But when I heard these girls talking, I'm like, not only do they have it figured out, but doggone it, a lot of hunters need to figure it out really quick too, because there's nothing wrong with having dreams and goals of going and killing a big buck and trying our best to put ourselves in that position. But if that's what the focus of everything is, and that's what you're searching for joy is, it's no different than an alcoholic trying to find it in the bottom of a bottle. It's not going to give it to you. So I hope everybody appreciates those words of encouragement from those young people, and tie the knot over to what you're doing with your hunting hobby, because this podcast is about killing big deer, but it's not going to bring you joy. It's just as simple as that.
I think it's so awesome that you brought this up, because those girls said it so well. And, I know a lot of young guys are turning to us that they've got their eyes on the prize this fall. They're going to kill a giant this fall. And guys, I'm telling you, that joy is short-lived. And I want you to think about something. You go out and you kill a giant buck this fall. It could be a 250-inch buck. Well, you know what? That buck means more to you than it means to anybody else on the planet. Now, your family may be proud of you and this and that, but I'm telling you, as each day passes, that buck is going to mean less and less and less and less to you over the years. It's empty. Everything on this earth is empty. You're never going to be fulfilled with anything you do on this earth. And it saddens me that I've got friends that I can't seem to get the message into their heads. It's like, come on, can't you see? Can't you look at me and see I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago? I'm hoping they can see the difference. And believing is seeing. That's the thing. You got to believe. If you don't believe, God's not going to just reveal himself. He's not going to come to you in your bedroom one night and boom, there he appears above your bed. It don't work like that. You got to believe first. And the more you believe, the more he will reveal himself to the point where there is absolutely no doubt in your mind that he is real. And that's where fulfillment will come.
Yeah. Because there's nothing more. Everybody that's listening to this podcast right now that shot a big deer have all experienced the haters, because it happens every time. No one ever shoots a big deer and doesn't get hated on. And so it's a perfect example of what these girls are talking about. They're playing at the pinnacle, women's fast pitch softball, even though there is a professional league, the College World Series is the pinnacle. It's what all these kids dream of. And here's these girls sitting there, not talking about themselves, not taking credit, but giving glory to where it needs to be. And like you said, man, hats off to this coach, the people they've surrounded themselves with, because there's not many teenagers or young people these girls' age. I mean, you figure they're probably 19 to maybe 22 at the most, that are have a perspective of life that the way they do. Pretty special.
Yeah, I want to, while we're on this kick, I'm not going to jump off of it anytime soon. So you got me fired up now. There's a lot of young guys listening to this podcast. I mean, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people listen to this podcast every weekend, and most of them are going to be younger than me. And a lot of guys in their 20s, even their teens and 30s. Guys, I want to tell you something. If you want to make a difference in your life, I don't care what your problem is today, you need to start by getting in church and make it a point this Sunday to take your family to church. And if you don't like that one, go to another one next week. But if you want your wife to love you like you should be, if you want your kids to love and respect you the way they should, it starts with the Lord. It doesn't start with you. It starts with, they're going to look up to you. They're going to love you, but they're going to love you because they see the Lord in you. And I'm telling you what, I didn't realize it when I was younger. I didn't. And I wish I would have got on the Jesus bandwagon 20 years sooner than I did. But once it happens, there's no turning back. I mean, there's no denying that God is real. And that's where your fulfillment's going to come from. It's not going to come from the woods. I don't care how many 200-inch bucks you shoot. I don't care how big of a name or a celebrity you become in the hunting industry. There's not a celebrity out there today that is being fulfilled. I don't care. You name me anybody in the hunting industry. I don't care how big their following is. They are not being fulfilled through their hunting. They're just not. If they're fulfilled at all, it's because they know the Lord.
Well, no matter the amount of haters, no matter the amount of bad comments, no matter the good and bad that we see out of this podcast, I want to tell you how proud I am as a friend of you, because literally, I mean, I've never said this in front of you, but you're one of the LeBron Jameses of deer hunting, and I know how much you hate LeBron James, but what I mean by that is you're at the top. You're doing things that very few can, but I guarantee you're the only one that'll come on a common platform out there and say what you just did, that even though you have goals, you have desires, your businesses are in this industry, none of it's important if your life isn't in the right place. So I'm proud of you, my friend. I know it's hard with what you have to deal with, but we're going to continue to surround ourselves with the right people and keep pushing on. It's what we're going to do, and I think God's blessed that with this podcast too.
No doubt about it. I want to share something else. You got me fired up now. Folks, I'm not perfect, and anybody that's known me anytime at all knows I've got plenty of faults. Even if you just listen to this podcast, you're going to hear me go on rants. You're going to hear me occasionally use words that I shouldn't. But the thing of it is, I'm better today than I was yesterday, and I'm not perfect, but I'm never gonna be. But I'm trying to work towards that direction. And the reason I share that with you is, I don't care where you're at in your life. If you're listening to this, I don't care if you go to the bar and get drunk every single night. I don't care if you're doing drugs, whatever. I don't care. I'm telling you, Jesus doesn't care either. He doesn't care about your past. What he cares about your future, and you've got the power to change your future. Turn to him. I mean, until you experience it, it's just hard to even explain it.
I got a feeling that you're going to be sharing that video, that softball press conference, on your social media in the next day or two. I don't know why, but I see a post coming coming shortly. So,
the timing of that was so perfect too. God's timing is perfect, because yesterday I was dealing with some clown from Iowa, transplant from Michigan, that was accusing me of things that are absolutely 100% false. And then right before I get on here, I'm dealing with this local clown that's accusing me of stuff. And then boom, Terry throws up Jesus and all's well.
Well, I got to admit, I told Don before we started recording, I said, I'm showing this video to you live in front of everybody. He didn't know what I was going to put up there. It could have been the leader of the free world falling down the steps from on off of a stage, or something political. He had no idea. I blindsided with him because I thought that story was just a huge connection in the journey that you've made. Let's shift gears just a little bit. We have really good questions today. I'm going to shift gears before you get on another rant, because a couple people have been asking about our good friend Chris Yates, and asking how he's doing. You talked to him here the last couple days. First off, I want you to give an update about how Chris is doing, and then he has a special at his dealerships that we're actually going to share a graphic on and give a contact number for anybody looking for a truck.
Yeah, I talked to Chris yesterday. He was at one of his dealerships actually, and he was kind of busy, so I didn't hang on the phone too long, but I did talk to him long enough to know that he got all his food plots planted, and he's ready to head out on a bear hunt next week. I think it's next Wednesday. He's going grizzly hunting. And so wish him all the best there, safe travels, and look forward to hearing his stories when he gets back. But the reason I called him is, besides the fact that he's a really good friend, is that I just felt that we hadn't mentioned his truck deal on the podcast for a while, and I was checking to see if he had any other special deals that he might want us to share. And sure enough, he did. And we're going to share it here. You're going to hear it for the first time. And Chris said he's got a big inventory of half-ton pickups. His specials before were all HD diesels. And so he's got a bunch of half-ton gas trucks in stock, both Chevys and GMCs that he's looking to move. So he's offering $8,000 off the price on any half-ton Chevy Silverado or GMC Sierra pickup. And if you're interested in that at all, I'm going to give you the number to call. This will be you're going to be calling a dealership, not Chris directly, but the dealership's number is 816-244-6487. And you just tell them you heard about it on Chasing Giants and you want the $8,000 off. And he said he's got a lot of inventory to pick from, various colors and whatever. I did ask him if it would that applied to special orders, and he said no, just inventory. But he said we've got a lot of inventory. He's got 5 dealerships, so there's a good chance that he's going to be able to set you up with what you're looking for.
So we need to make sure people understand this is 2023 models. So I know everybody's going to be racing and looking at the website. But do us a favor, when you guys call that dealership, Don's going to read it again in just a second. For the people watching on YouTube, it's up on the screen right now. Make sure you tell them that Chasing Giants sent you, and it helps us send business to Chris. But, even if you're in Tennessee, Florida, or Massachusetts, Chris sells these trucks all over the country, and he can have them delivered. He has services that can do that, and it's a whole lot cheaper than what you think to have a vehicle delivered to you. So if you're looking for a new truck, give him a chance to quote it. It doesn't hurt to make the phone call and have him quote it and see where it comes out at. It will save you money. I guarantee it. There's a reason that we drive as far as we do to do business with him.
Yeah. And, Chris is just an awesome brother in Christ too. And one thing that I try to do is support Christian businesses, especially small businesses. And that's exactly what Victory Chevrolet is. So if you're looking for a new half-ton truck, give them a call. Again, the number is 816-244-6487.
All right. And thank you for everybody that said a prayer for Chris with his heart surgery. Obviously, he's going to Alaska still. So that's honestly, I'm shocked that he's still able to go on that trip after just being cracked open. Seems like just a couple weeks ago, but he loves that grizzly hunting. I hope he gets a big one this year.
I'll tell you what, when the grizzly steps out, I bet the adrenaline goes to his heart, and I just hope his heart can handle it.
All right, well, let's listen. I'm going to put the first question of the week, and let's get moving on so we can spend time with answering these folks' questions. Remember, if you get a question used on the podcast, Don is going to send you a Chasing Giants t-shirt. So make sure that you fill out that information on chasinggiants.com and put your full address in when you submit a question.
Yeah, one thing I'll throw out there too, Terry, is we are out of certain sizes of t-shirts. I got some on back order. So if you do not get a t-shirt,
I got one on right now.
Well, you want to send it to somebody?
They're on order. They should come. And people are going to get a little froggy over this, but if you look, you probably can't see it on the t-shirt footage, but the Chasing Giants logo is actually in Osseo camo.
Yep.
So the outline of it. So Joe, I worked with Joe the last couple months, and we're actually printing the Chasing Giants logo in Osseo pattern. So pretty cool. So the new shirts that come in, you're going to go through the old ones in different sizes, but those are the new style that we have coming out.
Yeah, there's already some of the old ones. We're out of certain sizes, so be patient. If we've got you on our list, and you will get a t-shirt.
They'll be shipping soon, I promise.
Our first question comes from Mark Zoke from Slatington, Pennsylvania. He says, Don and Terry, simply put, you guys kick butt. Last week you were talking about mineral and EHD and how a deer will only intake the amount of mineral it needs at a given time. I feed in a state that allows supplemental feeding. I combine corn, pelleted sweet feed, peanuts, molasses, and maximizer mineral all together, making a feed that the deer absolutely hammer. Would I be better off keeping the mineral separate from the corn mix, allowing the deer to choose between a fat protein-filled feed or a mineral site, depending on a deer's needs at the time? Essentially giving them two options rather than it all in one. I've been feeding for years and the deer never quite ate the feed near as much as they do with your mineral. Thanks, guys. Well, Mark, I think you've hit it on the head. I think you need to do both. I think you need to continue to put the mineral in your feed and also, provide mineral licks on your property as well. Just give them as many different options as possible, and they'll consume what they need. If they go to the feeder and they get the mineral they need, they're not going to hit your mineral licks near as hard. So I'd give them both.
I think one thing that people who live in bait states like I do, if they really think about it hard, every deer has a different personality, and I wish we could ask them what they're thinking. But there's deer that absolutely, when you're sitting in a tree stand looking out and you can see a feeder that won't even go near a feeder, but they'll hit a mineral lick. And there's deer that won't eat the mineral lick, but they'll go eat out of the feeder. So I think you put it out in as many variations as you can. The consumption's probably going to be the same no matter what, but you're going to appeal to more personalities in different times and different situations with the more variety you have.
Right. Different locations too. And, if you got a dominant animal on the feeder, a subordinate animal can go eat out of the mineral lick while that other deer's at the feeder. So lots of advantages.
BuyAFarm.com is your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. Now, here is Don Higgins with this week's featured property.
Well, welcome to this week's Buy a Farm segment. We actually have two fantastic properties that we're going to talk about this week. The first one, I have Don Bailey on the phone with us, and he's going to tee up this listing that will not last long. So if you're hearing this on Sunday night, Monday morning, you need to get online and look at this one, right, Don?
Yes, sir. Terry, it's 40 acres in Jefferson County near Walnut Hill. If you don't know where Walnut Hill is, that's just east of Centralia, Illinois. It's got 26.8 acres enrolled in CRP, and it's just been re-enrolled for another 10 years if a person wants to leave it in. It's very, very meticulously maintained. Some people put it in CRP and then they just walk away. But the owner has taken very, very good care of it. It's got two buildings on it, Terry, 42 by 45 and a 42 by 55. One of them is a pole barn with just a gravel floor. The other one has concrete floor installation, and the guy had a mega wood shop in there just for his own service. But yeah, it's set up neat. At 200 amp service, heat and air, overhead doors, city water, city septic, and a brand new power pole at the building. There's a creek runs along the east side of it, about 10 acres, and it's one of the nicest creeks that I've seen for a long, long time, as far as the curves and the sandbars and so on and so forth.
Right.
It also, Terry, has a lot of nice timber on it. This guy didn't believe in cutting timber, just not very many acres, but gosh, the trees on that side and the trees around the outside are huge. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, it's got one of the largest oak trees that I ever recall seeing. It's down in a little bit of a valley where the wind hasn't ripped it apart. Great place for a home site. It's on a dead end road, Terry. So there's one other person lives just about 400 yards on down.
Right.
But it's it's a great piece, and at the price that it's priced at, $230,000 for everything, it won't last long.
Well, I'm looking at the property right now on the Buy a Farm website, and I want to tell all the listeners, I don't know the property. I haven't been on it. You have. But these two buildings that you just mentioned, to tee this up a little bit for the outdoor community, the one would be a perfect shed to store equipment, side-by-sides, tractors, equipment. But I'm telling you what, the pictures of the inside of this where he had his wood shop, that could easily be turned into a hunting cabin, living quarters, or be maintained as a shop. I mean, it's really nice inside. Got a bathroom and everything. So people who just wanted to hunt on it and have a place to stay, it would be pretty much drive on site and go.
Yeah, it's basically whatever you'd want to do with it.
Right.
If you want to put in a few walls or not, put in a small kitchen. The sewer is already there. It's already hooked up to septic. And there's you have to look close. My grandson was with me. I didn't even see it, but there's a deer in the picture. Just encourage everyone to look till they see it. But
yep, I see
it's a fawn laying down. So.
Yep. So it's in CRP right now. You could talk with the county extension office to find out your flexibility of the CRP, how many acres obviously is in. You get that kind of little different county extension agencies let you get by with a little bit more, but a little bit of timber on the sides. This is a fresh slate. And, it's a smaller piece of property that doesn't have that huge price point. So, somebody looking for a homestead or just a place to get away and hunt, this might be the perfect spot.
And Terry, it's an elderly gentleman owned it. He had plans to build a home there, but life changes, and he had to build a home somewhere else because of his circumstance. But when you drive through it, like the draws, the low places, there's not a single washed out place on it, Terry.
Yep.
And as I drove around the perimeter of the field. I did not see a single four-wheel track or a single pickup track. I made the only tracks that looked like had been made in it for years and years. So it's a very private piece.
Yep. So there's a real good topo map on it. It looks like road frontage to the north. So that means coming from the north, you could hunt a couple different predominant winds just walking in with the tree lines on each side. And this big, if you zoom out a little bit, there's a lot of big connecting woods on it. So like I said, big field, CRP, big timber, revenue. It's kind of a little bit of everything on a small track. So I think I know why you said it will not last long.
Truly, it is a nice track.
All right. So if you want to learn more about this, obviously visit the Buy a Farm website and search under Jefferson County. I found it in just a matter of seconds. And then, Don, leave your contact info in case anybody wants to reach out to you and schedule a visit or something.
Sure. My direct phone number is 618-919-1031. And my email is dbailey@buyafarm.com.
Perfect. Thanks for being on the show tonight. We're going to tee up another property with Todd Hewing. Thanks for your time, buddy.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Well, as promised, we're going to have another property. I got the infamous tracker. I'm telling you what, Todd, it's on my bucket list. I got Todd Hewing on the phone. It's on my bucket list. Before time gets away from us, I want to run a trap line with you for a couple days. You got to make this happen for me, man.
Well, we can do that. We got to wait till we very well got to wait till after bow season.
Yep.
I don't hit it too hard till then. Then I hit it pretty hard. So.
Well, I know this segment is supposed to talk about properties, and we're gonna team one, maybe two up. But how about the turkey season you just had, man? That was unbelievable.
I had a fantastic turkey season. Kerry, I'm the most blessed guy I know. I get to do more outdoor stuff than anybody should be allowed to have, fun. But this year, I could have walked in your front door farted and there was going to be a turkey gobble and come running in. It was just that awesome. I turkey hunted a long time, and I've just never had a season. I mean, I was so far ahead of schedule. Of course, I did the world in a single season, which is pretty darn rare.
Yep.
And I had, of course, it takes a lot of planning. So when I got done in northern Nebraska, I was 12 days ahead of schedule.
Oh my goodness!
That was phenomenal. I think I either killed a bird or called in a bird for somebody else to shoot every single day I hunted, but 2.
Oh my goodness!
As an average, killed a couple birds in a day. I think 3 times, and so yeah, and you had my old buddy Al down there. You gotta have some fun with it.
Oh yeah, Al and Joe here. See, for people who've never met Al and Joe, you've been friends with Al for a long, long time. But seeing them two double up on the first afternoon, man, it was a good turkey season for a lot of people, I think, this year.
Terry, as you well know, Al Foster, when I was a kid, he was the Don Higgins.
Yep.
I mean, and you can't get a nicer guy.
Nope.
More of a gentleman.
Most humble guy I know.
Yes, fantastic dude. And I hunted with him in Mexico, but a couple years ago. He and I are going to hook up again and do some turkey hunting. But, the trips I've made 2 trips to Mexico, and they're fantastic. But when you're there, you just think, wow, am I so lucky to be an American?
Yep.
And the things we got, the things we take for granted, it's crazy. I mean, there's no wonder they're lined up at our border. Because we've got it made, and we don't even know it. But anyway, that's.
Well, I got a goal that me and you and Al need to put this goal together.
Okay.
We need you, me, Al, and Joe. We need to do. You all can come whack a few turkeys on my place again, but we need to get Don behind a 12 gauge and let him smack a big old thunder chicken right in the face. I think we need to figure out a way to get that done.
Well, we can get that done. You put me and Foster behind the turkey call, and we give Higgins a 12 gauge. It's going to happen.
Yep.
So, and I've told Don he's got turkeys at his place now. I think this is the first year he's really seen much.
He's first year he's had them.
He's been a busy man his whole life. It's a little bit time for him to slow down and enjoy spring too.
Yep. He's cutting back on the consulting work. He's taking it easy. I think he's actually with his grandkids at a baseball tournament this summer. So this spring, with him not doing as much consulting work, I think we need to get a turkey hunt planned. Maybe whack a few in Kentucky. Lord knows I got enough that need to be shot.
Well, and not very far from you, I got a new farm in southern Illinois by Haven Rock.
Yep.
We can sit there in the cabin. We can get Higgins out there. Me and Foster are going to sit there and drink coffee. Well, I might drink a little something a little stronger, but there ain't nobody around. We don't even have to worry about. I mean, anymore when you're running with Don, you about got to stop and let him do autographs and whatever else.
Pretty much.
He's almost professional. So.
Yep.
But anyway,
all right. Let's focus on why we're here, and let's tee up maybe 2 properties. I think the first one is actually Mark Kennedy's listing, but the property so well, you're going to talk about it a little bit tonight. So let's start with that one.
Well, they're both Mark Kennedy's properties.
Okay.
Mark's a great guy, but he's not really a sportsman.
Okay.
So this property in Alexander County is, if you're going down 57 in Illinois, and you're going to cross the river and go into Missouri. At that bridge, if you just went upriver less than a mile is where this property is. It's actually right across the road, Route 3, from the Carroll Airport, which is not a big municipal airport by any means.
Mm-hmm.
This property, the reason I like it It's in a really good WRE, which is Wetland Reserve Enhancement Program. Could make some money there.
Mm-hmm.
You would develop some habitat. It's also in a good CRP area. It's got 20. I'm winging it here. I think there's 27 acres of tillable.
Okay.
It has another, I'm going to say 40 acres that's across the chute, which is just a narrow strip of water that is on probably a 600 or 700 acre island.
Yep.
All the way to the north. And those big islands in the Mississippi are known for big deer.
Right.
And it is an all-around property for like your listeners that are coming from Mississippi and whatever to Illinois.
Yep.
It's as close as you can get in Illinois. It's still in that big river bottom where you get good deer.
Right.
The Mississippi's there, which is also fantastic waterfowl.
Mm-hmm.
You're just ducks, geese, mainly ducks nowadays, turkeys and deer. You could stay at Carroll in the motel and be 10 minutes away.
Right.
It's easy access. It's just and here's the other thing. In that particular area, and it's an auction, so I don't know the price, things have a tendency, especially when you look at things in my neck of the woods up here, they have a tendency to go off at about half price.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's a bargain property, but it's just the neighborhood. Things here, deer ground right here by my house is 5,000-6,000 an acre, pretty regular.
Yep.
And I don't think you're going to be nowhere near that down there. You got 27 acres. If you put it in CRP, I'm going to say, strictly speculation on my part, close to $180 an acre.
Mm.
If you put it in WRE, which just takes a little more work, but you're probably looking at $3,000 or $4,000 an acre for a one-time payment.
Yep.
So anyhow, I like that property, and it could be overlooked because Mark probably is not going to dwell on how good the hunting could be.
Right.
But so a non-out-of-state hunter coming from Mississippi, all he has to go to Carroll, go to the Quality Inn, $79 a night, 10 miles to your hunting spot, whether it's ducks or deer or turkey.
Right. Absolutely.
And so that's why I like it, and I think it's going to be fairly reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I might be wrong. Somebody might go crazy on it. There's one other property I would like to just mention.
Sure.
And I haven't been on this property, but I know right where it's at. And actually, I used to own a piece of ground fairly close to it.
Okay.
And it's a 50-acre tract. It's south of Murfreesboro. I'm going to say southeast of Murfreesboro, southwest, sorry. Probably 10 miles at the most.
What county would that be, Todd?
That's Jackson County.
Jackson County.
It's the auction closes July 11th. If you look at the aerial photo, it's just broken ground. It has a dozen acres of tillable ground, maybe a little more than that. I just got off the tractor, so I'm winging it. It's in a good area for deer and turkeys, and it's a food plotter's dream. You could switch grass, you could food plot. I think there's a shooting house on the thing now.
Okay.
It's probably going to be reasonable. You can build a house, build a cabin. I really like it. And Mark could give you more details on, the specifics of water and whatever.
Sure.
But I want to say he told me it had $2,000 a year income. If it was me, I'd throw away the $2,000. I would call you guys up and say, I need some beans, I need some switchgrass, and need some miscanthus. I'd throw a 2 360s on it, and I'd kill some deer.
Yep.
But that's what.
So that property is on an auction that closes, I believe it starts on June 9th, closes on June 11th. So the people listening to this, it comes out on June 11th. So, or excuse me, it closes July 11th. So it's just gonna open up. It's just gonna open up this weekend. You got about a month, but I'm telling you, like you just said, it's that 50-acre mark. So it's enough that you can hunt and you can kind of dabble and do a lot of it with property management. But it's not these huge tracts that are just going to go for crazy big money. So I think it's going to be in a price point a lot more people can look at.
Absolutely, and it's a nice area. Are you looking at an aerial photo of it?
I am.
Okay, so spread it out, and you see all the habitat around it.
Yep.
It needs soybeans. It probably needs some greenery.
Yep.
It needs switchgrass, miscanthus to guide the deer, and 2 360s, and you're home free.
Yep.
It's a nice piece.
Looks like the shooting house is right in the middle of the field, so that's usually a problem for us. But
well, that shooting house would move for me.
Move that and get some access points on it, and you could have a dandy piece of property here.
Yep. And you guys' miscanthus is a game changer for properties just like that.
Yes, sir.
And you can do different things. And again, I didn't tell Mark I was going to discuss that property, but one day I don't remember what I was doing, and I was looking at it, and I got to looking at the aerial photo, and I actually looked at some other topographic maps and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's a sweet piece. Again, Mark's going to mention it's a deer patch or turkey patch, but in his defense, he is a straight shooter 100%.
Yep.
And he'll be the first to tell you he's not a deer hunter.
Yep.
So I wanted to touch on it.
There is some ag around that area, Todd, but there is a lot of woods. So I mean, there is a lot of deer country around this property when you zoom out of the aerial.
It's nicely broken up, the whole area.
Yes, sir.
And with just sweeten the pot a little bit on your 50, yeah, I think it could be a good one.
Yep.
And I didn't mean to throw two of them in there, but both of them I really like.
Yes.
And again, I'm going to say from in Don's neck of the woods, my neck of the woods, land prices have just
gotten stupid,
gone ridiculous in my opinion. I hate to say that as a realtor, but we've got a little higher interest rates. You can get some good hunting if you save a couple thousand an acre and you're in Southern Illinois. If you got to make a payment, that less interest it keeps you happy at home with the wife.
Yes, sir.
So, anyway.
All right. Well, I'm gonna since both of these are Mark Kennedy's listings, I'm gonna read his phone number for everybody, so they can give Mark a call. Todd's doing these just because he knows one of the properties firsthand and saw the second one. So get your pens out. Mark Kennedy's phone number is 618-924-1747. And again, go out to buyfarm.com, look at these aerials, the different photographs, and give Mark a call on these two properties. It's just land's coming harder to come by, and like you said, some of these tracks just go ridiculous, and this might be an opportunity to grab one at a really fair price on both of these two.
Both of those, the reason I mentioned them is because I think there could be a golden opportunity for somebody to get a nice tract of ground for maybe a little less money.
Yep. Well,
Terry, let's get Higgins behind that shotgun. That sounds good.
That sounds good, and I want to run a trap line with you for a day, buddy. It's on my bucket list.
Anytime.
All right, man. Thanks for being on the show tonight. We appreciate you.
Hey, thank you. All right, bye-bye.
This one comes from Kyle Teepee. I hope I said your name right, Kyle, from Oakland City, Indiana. It says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Thanks for the great advice and sharing your knowledge. My question is that I'm finishing building a new home on my property, and I have a yard that is going to need seeded this summer. Is there anything I can use as yard seed that will also be a food source for does and fawn? Thanks, Kyle. Trump 2024. Well, Kyle, you might want to go get your wife to listen to this before I start talking, because I was in your shoes just a couple of years ago. We built our new home. And I told my wife that I was going to plant clover in the yard instead of grass. And she vetoed the idea. So I'm hoping that you have a little more luck than I did. But clover is where it's at. I mean, for your yard. I mean, I don't know that you'd want just a straight mix of clover, but you can mix a lot of ladino clover, white clovers. They don't get near as tall and stemmy as a red clover will. You can mix that with your lawn seed and get those deer to come up there and eat in your yard. The key is not to mow it too close, especially in the fall. Don't mow it late into November. Let it have some height on it for that first winter, and that clover will definitely attract the deer. So
all those people spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get clover out of their yard, and all the deer hunters see clover in their backyard up against the woods and get a big smile on their face when the deer pour in. I think it's hilarious.
I hope Kyle has better luck with his wife than I did. I didn't have any luck at all. However, I do have a food plot right at the edge of my backyard. So she's got her grass, but that grass ends at a certain point, and then I got a food plot. So we got deer in our yard too.
Well, the problem with having it in your backyard is the closer you pull them in, they won't stop right at in your yard. They'll be in your flower bed eating all the hostas is what usually ends up happening.
That's already happening here. I'm hearing about it. Robin's got a sprayer with some kind of deer repellent. She goes around the house spraying the plants.
Well, tell her not to go out and spray that stuff at the smoky blind. We don't want it out there.
That's right.
All right, here we go. Here's another one.
So this one comes from Travis Pennington from Archbold, Ohio. He says, "Hello, Don and Terry. My question relates to using mineral. I recently had an owner of a mineral company explain to me that they put organic dewormer in their mineral and have seen a huge increase in antler growth. Do you have any insight on this, or have you investigated it? And depending on what your answer is to that part of the question, this gentleman also stated that you will see major changes in antler growth within 90 days compared to bucks not using the mineral, and an increase of 30 to 50% in antler growth and body mass. I find that almost impossible. Thanks for your response and keep up the good work. God's work. P.S. I think Mother Nature wants a rain dance in some Seprotec underwear."
That's the second Seprotec reference tonight. That's crazy.
It is. And you know what? I don't have any Seprotec. So, Terry, I guess you're going to be the one doing the rain dance.
All right. Well, let's answer the question. Let's answer the question first. I can't wait to hear this one.
Because people probably don't want to see you in your underwear.
Probably not.
Now I forgot what the question was. It was about mineral.
All right. So let's break the question down two different ways. Have you ever looked at putting dewormer in your feed or mineral, and what's the benefits of using something like that?
So he talked about an all-natural dewormer. Actually, Real World's Maximizer has an all-natural dewormer in it as well. It's probably the very same product or nutrient that he's talking about, and I'm not even going to try to hide what it is. It's called diatomaceous earth. And it's mined out of a lake bed, I think in Arizona, and it's little microscopic diatoms, little microscopic animals that have died in that over the years, and they've got a hard shell, and as that ingredient passes through the animal's digestive system, that hard shell and that diatomaceous earth supposedly cuts the parasites and kills them. Supposedly how it works. Now, the claim that the guy makes is totally just ridiculous. I put out a good YouTube video on do minerals really work. You can find it if you go to the Whitetail Master Academy website. You can see that, and you don't even have to be a member. You can see it for free. Just scroll down to the bottom. There's a whole bunch of free videos that were once on YouTube. They're still on YouTube, actually, but look for the one on do deer minerals really work? And I explain exactly, everything that I pretty much just blow away what this guy's saying. There is no way that you can just start feeding the deer a mineral and he's going to, in 60 or 90 days, he's going to increase his body mass and his antlers by 50%. Just not going to happen. That's absolute nonsense. What else was he saying? That did he make another claim there, Terry?
Yeah, he said that increase of 30 to 50% in antler growth and body mass, major changes in antler growth within 90 days.
Yeah,
So
both those are.
But the problem with it is the guy's actually doing something good. We've put dewormer in. I mean, you're taking a parasite out of the gut. You're improving gut health. You're allowing the animal to absorb more nutrients and whatever he's taking in, not just mineral, but even the normal food sources, because the parasites aren't there. You're not having the stress of the parasite. This guy's got a great idea. Nothing wrong with it, but he's throwing just absolute garbage out there that he can't quantify. I mean, how's he measuring 30 to 50% more antler growth and major changes? Does he have twin buck fawns in two different pens feeding one and not the other? It's not, you can't quantify this.
Yeah, this is when people start making claims like this, is when you want to just move on and look for another product, because absolutely no way it could possibly be true. And there's no way, as Terry pointed out, there's no way to quantify that. I mean, how does he know what a buck would have grown without his mineral? And even twin buck fawns are going to be different. Twin buck fawns could actually have two different fathers.
Right. So, yeah, we talked about that with Dr. Strickland, that, you could actually have two different twins and they not even have the same father. We've talked about that quite a bit. So if you want to see that, the Whitetail Master Academy website, I just tried to find it, but I had to flip back over for the question. Go to the Whitetail Master Academy. That's actually a free video that you can watch. You don't have to be a member of it. You have some teasers to get people some samples. Not a plug for the Master Academy, but if you're interested in learning more about minerals, it's a good little video.
Yep. Do deer minerals really work? That's the title of the video.
All right. Well, let's keep moving here.
Okay, the next one comes from Nathan from Indianapolis, Indiana. He says, do bucks have varying growth spurts for antlers between deer? Or if buck A has bigger antlers compared to buck B in early June, buck A will have bigger antlers throughout the summer, or can buck B catch up or pass buck A? That's a great question, Nathan. And I actually wrote a blog post on my website several years ago about this, back when I had captive deer, because what I noticed was that, the antler growth cycle basically is, let's say, from about the 1st of April till the end of August. But what will happen is that some bucks will grow the majority of their rack earlier in that cycle. And by the time July rolls around, they're pretty much done. They don't grow in. They don't put on any inches in August. Late July, they're wrapping it up. And other bucks are late. That they're putting on inches clear to the very end of that growth cycle. And it seemed like an individual buck, whichever way he is, he'll stay that way his whole life. So if he puts that growth on early, he's always going to put it on earlier. If he's one of those late growers, he's always going to be late. So absolutely, one buck can start out behind another buck and then pass him by significant inches later in the antler growing cycle. And that's one of the reasons I don't put my trail cameras out too early. Yeah, right now in early June, you can get pictures of some bucks and know if they're going to be nice, but they're so far away from really telling you what they're going to be. But by the 1st of July, they've got that frame. They've got the start on most of their points. They might still add a few, but it's going to be minor points. The major main frame is pretty much going to be there. So that's why I wait till the 1st of July. But you bring up a very good point. It's not like a row of corn. You plant a row of corn, seeds in a row, and then they all pop up the same day, and they're all at the tasseling the same time, and then they're all drying down the same time. It's not like that at all with a buck. That they're staggered in their growth.
So what you're saying is not only can different bucks peak for antler growth by how old they are. Some bucks might top out at 4 years old, some might top out at 7, but inside each yearly cycle, each buck can vary about when he blows up. How does, like we talked about the drought earlier, I'm assuming that nutrition and intake and stress can also play a role in that.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah. Nutrition and stress both can really severely affect a deer's antlers. And in fact, after getting this question, I'm going to produce a video, have Steve produce a video for the Whitetail Master Academy on the antler growth cycle, because I've got all kinds of documentation, photos of bucks and such that I can show. And when I did the blog post, I actually did that. I showed here's these two bucks on, I don't remember what the date was, maybe June 15th or whatever. Here's those same two bucks on July 15th, and buck A had passed up buck B. So it's a great topic, and one that we're going to produce a video on.
Yeah, and maybe something fun that we can do during velvet season this year is share some trail camera pictures, whether we get them from others or we use some from ours. That's not part of the Whitetail Master Academy or the Big Buck, and just talk about things we're looking for in velvet frames. Is the point in tine got pointy, or is it still a blunt point? I always laugh when people say he can still put on mass. I find that, that they think that the antler is going to get a bigger diameter as time goes on. So I think that'd be a good conversation. We'll bring that up. If people have questions about what we're looking at during velvet season, maybe that's a good topic. You can submit some new listener submitted questions on that we can cover the next couple weeks.
There's a lot of bad information out there about antler growth and just deer hunting in general. And I don't claim to be an expert. I prefer to think of myself as a student, always trying to learn more and get better. But I see a lot of stuff that I absolutely know is false. And a lot of it pertains to antler growth.
All right. We're going to put the last question up here and see if I can keep from going on a rant.
This one comes from Brandon from Bowling Green, Kentucky. He says, Don, there's been a lot of internet chatter lately with some well-known hunters about green to grain transition lines in terms of food plot design. I know that you are a very big proponent of large food plots and mostly single variety beans, corn until late season, then a cover crop mix as in the Deadly Dozen. These hunters seem to use that direct transition of greens to grain area as a stand setup and feel very confident that the deer will congregate or majority of the time pass through that spot. What's your thoughts on splitting up a small field in that manner, say 3 to 6 acres? Can you also comment on a larger food plot as well? Thanks so much. Well, Brandon, I just made a short video today and posted on the Whitetail Master Academy under the Chasing 200 series. I was out in the field and actually posted 4 videos today from the field. But I am a big fan of fewer but bigger food plots. However, I don't see a food plot necessarily as just being one crop. So I look at it more as a feeding area. So you got a big feeding area, and within that area, you might have corn and clover and soybeans and Deadly Dozen and fruit trees around the edge and everything else. Now, I call it a food plot. It's probably more like a feeding area. So I actually just videoed this afternoon a spot on my property where I'm creating an edge with clover and corn. The NutriCrave corn is up and doing good. If it gets a rain, it'll be doing really good. And then right next to it, I've sprayed a strip about, 18, 20 feet wide that's going to be planted in clover this fall. Probably throw in some oats as a little bit of a cover crop to go with it. But so, I think it's great to break up a bigger plot with multiple different crops. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I'm not familiar with the chatter that you're talking about on the internet. I haven't seen it. I think Terry must have, because he's sitting there ready to go off or something.
We talk about this on 2/3 of our episodes about using different products and height variations. And this is stuff we've talked about for 3 years. I laugh. It's funny.
Well, I can tell you without a doubt that there's people out there following our podcast, my social media, the real world, social media, and then they just they pick up an idea and then they run with it like it's their own, never giving credit to anybody. And that's just one thing that irritates me a little bit, because I've always been one that tried to give credit where credit's due. You guys have heard me mention Gene Barry Wenzel. You've heard me mention Roger Rothar, Alan Foster, all those guys that taught me so much years ago. I'm the first to give them credit, and I will forever be grateful to those guys for what they've taught me. It just kind of irritates me to see these guys on the internet coming up or putting out videos or whatever, like they just came up with the latest, greatest thing. And, 3 or 4 or 5 days ago, we are the ones that really put it out there. Oh, well, it's part of the territory.
I guess, but all right. So we're recording a little bit earlier this weekend. You're heading out of town, and I'm going to be heading back up your way here the first of next week and hauling a 360 blind back. That's going to be a part of the remodel of part of my farm, is to put a 360 blind out. I want to tell everybody that I did get a lot of comments about turning the gravity wagon into a box blind, and I think it's got merit. I'm a little concerned that my schedule isn't going to allow me to possibly do it this year. If I do it, I want to do it right. Everybody just keeps saying to put a 360 blind on top of it, and as much as people don't understand this, we don't have unlimited funds that we can just throw something at something anytime we want. So if I wanted to put a 360 blind on it, that'd be nice, but I'm not going to waste my 360 blind for this project. But I got a lot of good insight, a lot of fun. One of the things that people have been asking a lot of questions on that I think we're going to probably go into, maybe talk about it on the podcast a little bit as we get closer to 4th of July. You probably need to do a video on it on the Whitetail Master Academy. I'll try to give some insight on my social media, is setting out trail cameras and preparing. So I know the price of lithium batteries is going absolutely berserk right now, probably because of all those Tesla cars that all the tree huggers are driving. But using external battery packs, 4-wheeler packs with 12-volt adapters and solar panels are going to be a large part of what you and I are doing this year in certain places. So we'll try to let people know what we're doing there. It seems to be a very common question I get a couple days a week, so we'll try to go over that.
Yeah, and I might even next week share a source for buying lithium batteries. Cheapest source I found it. Actually, my son-in-law found it and shared it with me. One thing about it, I don't want to share it with any Democrats. So if you're a Democrat, don't listen next week, because your voting habits is what's made the price of batteries go up. I'm just kidding.
Please send all hate mail to never mind. People obviously can't take sarcasm sometimes. Hey, before we close, how about a post on social media about a tree breaking, probably setting the all-time record of engagement on your social media? I couldn't believe that, Don.
I couldn't either. Unbelievable. I took a picture of that tree. It just happened to be driving by it while I was cutting hay.
Well, take a step back. Take a step back and explain what the picture is first. Now that we've brought this up.
Yeah. Well, so I had a stand in a pine tree, and that pine tree, the top of it broke out, but it broke right where the chain was wrapped around that tree. Now the stand had been in this tree for 3 years. It was actually the cameraman stand for the stand that I shot Mel out of. And so I put that up the summer that I shot Mel, or before I shot Mel. And as you can see, that chain wrapped around the tree, and that's exactly where the top broke out at. And I made a post, and what's it got, like 5,000 likes?
5,000 likes and over 1,200 comments.
Unbelievable. I thought I'd be lucky to get 100. I knew the haters were going to come out telling me what an idiot I was for leaving my stand in the tree and all my faults as a human being. But
I saw somebody called you lazy. That was funny.
A couple guys got into it about politics, and
well, For people who, I guess we can openly talk about this now. When we were partnered with Novix, we really couldn't talk about modifying a tree stand because any, kind of talk about modifying anything, because they're monitored by a Tree Stand Safety Association or something like that. So they really didn't want to talk about it. But you've for years eliminated the straps and put chains around it with a bolt, and so that you can leave them out every year and minimize the amount of intrusion. The only thing you have to worry about is the cables from the I-beam down to the platform. And in some cases, you've even put chains there also with stainless bolts. But we weren't allowed to really talk about it. But it was funny. I saw that and I'm like, holy cow, you got over 5,000 likes and 1,200 comments. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all.
If you shared a message or a scripture about Jesus, you'd probably get about 3.
Maybe I need to try that experiment. I did make a pretty good post on my personal page, not my Higgins Outdoors page today, that I knew would not get a lot of likes, but I think it had 100.
No, well. Anyway, we appreciate all the people that always have our backs. We know that sometimes we vent about the negative more than the positive, but we sure do appreciate the outpouring. And go share that story of those 3 softball players. Let's make that go viral in the world today. I think that's what needs to be the focus of the mentorship that, coaches, mentors, parents, that's the difference you can make in somebody's life. That's pretty special.
No doubt about it. Those girls have good parents and an awesome coach. For a coach to let them sit there and talk that, the coach has got to be on the same page.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that coach, you're not familiar with that, but that coach is always very open about her faith, and there's all kinds of videos and interviews where she's basically talked the same way. So pretty special.
First time I've ever seen anything about it. Good for
her. All right, well, we're gonna sign off and end it here. Again, if you got questions about Velvet Fest, I know we're coming up on peak herbicide season. If we can get some rain, I am not spraying herbicide when it's being this dry. I can tell you that. So if you got questions about that, make sure you send them in to chasinggiants.com. Make sure you give Chris Yates a call and tell him Chasing Giants podcast sent you. If you're looking for a new 2023 truck, no matter where you're at, give him a chance to quote it. I'm sure you won't be disappointed.
Amen. Hope everybody has a great week. And remember, you're never going to be fulfilled by killing giants.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Biofarm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.